The APC64 also has a very powerful step sequencer that can be used in conjunction with Ableton Live or completely standalone. So here I'm controlling a drum rack in Ableton Live, just sending MIDI from the step sequencer. And as you can see there, what I'm able to do is select notes and place them along the way in the sequence. If you want to be able to preview the sounds, just hold Shift and press the pad you want to preview. Let's add a hi-hat next. And one thing I also want you to take note of is that as I place notes along the way here on the sequence, I'm actually able to enter them in with a level of velocity. So if I hit these pads on the sequence hard, they'll be brighter, indicating a higher velocity. We can also hear those velocity changes when we play it back. We're going to go deeper with editing velocity and other parameters in another video. Now, those velocity values got entered into real time because this yellow quadrant here represents velocity. So in velocity mode, I'm able to play the notes as played, or anywhere from 3% to 100%, the highest velocity we can get. If I want to change an already entered note's velocity, all I have to do is hold down that note and press the velocity value that I'd like to change it to. So let's add some variation, bringing these velocities down. Let's add in this rim shot next. Instead of placing these notes directly onto the sequence, I'm going to record in real time. So let's switch to record arm mode here in the step sequencer and record arm the step sequencer track that we're currently in. Now, when I play these notes, they'll record in real time as the sequence plays. I can unarm this track to get out of that real-time playing mode. You'll notice here at the top that we're seeing all the notes that were input into the step sequence, no matter which drum pad they came from. When we select a particular drum pad, we can see exactly where those notes are. If we deselect a drum pad, we're seeing all the notes on the sequence. Now, since we're using this in conjunction with Ableton Live, it would be extremely helpful to send this sequence to an Ableton Live clip, which we can do by holding Shift and pressing Enter, Send to Clip. Let me stop the sequence, go back to Session View, and now we've got a new clip containing that sequence we just wrote with the step sequencer in Ableton Live. Now, your step sequencer may still send MIDI data to Ableton Live if your track is armed, so I might recommend after you send to a clip, you can go ahead and clear that sequence you just made by holding clear and pressing the track that your sequence is on. Now in Session View, I can launch this clip and hear the exact sequence that we just made in Ableton Live as a clip. As I mentioned earlier, we can also use the APC64's step sequencer in complete standalone mode away from Ableton Live. To access this, I'll go into the global settings and I'll change device mode from Ableton Live to standalone. Let's connect to our Mother 32. Go back to our step sequencer. And if you remember, we were just in drum mode for track 1. I could switch to another one of the multiple tracks in the step sequencer, but I'd like to show you that we can switch any track from drum mode to note mode in our settings menu. If I select track 1, I can switch from drum mode to note mode. Now this grid looks a little similar to the grid we're familiar with in note mode, but here on the step sequencer, it works the same exact way, where I can just choose the note I'd like to play, holding Shift and pressing a note to hear it and preview it, and then plot it on our sequence. Now the sequence sounds like this. We can create tied notes by holding Shift and pressing the next adjacent pad. And the tie will be represented by those white illuminated pads when in velocity mode. In projects, we can save the step sequencer's parameters as well as the patterns, and we can also save note, chord mode parameters, global parameters, and custom mode assignments. So if I press save here, we'll save that current sequence that we have. I can also duplicate that sequence, head back into the step sequencer. And now we can edit this sequence. Let's just make it a little more sparse and take out some notes. Save this project. And by holding down Project 1 and then pressing Project 2, we've now chained them together. So now we can create even longer sequences with the step sequencer.